and I appreciate all your hard work that you have been doing. You've been doing a good job getting your work in. The work has been very, very good. I can tell that you've really been working hard and you're doing a great job, and I really do appreciate that and thank you for that. And I hope you've had a good day, a good weekend. Hope some of you got some snow this weekend. We had some snow, so that was good. Would you give me a thumbs up if you can see my blue screen that says MELS? Thank you, Stephen. I see you. Welcome home, Stephen. So this is MELS 601 add-on. A few people joining us, so let's let them in. I don't know why in presentation mode, it just does not move fast when I'm on Zoom. So let me take the presentation mode off, even though I prefer presentation mode, but it's not going to let me do that right now. So we'll move on. So today, here we go. So we do want to start with our meeting protocols, just like you would do in a PLC. Remember that this does help our meetings go better. If you can keep your microphone muted unless you need to unmute to ask a question or to make a comment, that's fine. Please consider having your video on. That does help us make a connection with one another, so thank you for that. And just remain mindful of your frame and what's in your frame being like your face, like the things around you and behind you. We may say things that we really don't want shared with the rest of the world, so maintain confidentiality, be respectful, collaborative, and supportive, and make sure that you have your first and last name in your frame so that we all know who you are, and that helps us learn each other even more. And remember to take good care of yourself. I can't believe that next month will be 2 years that we have been in this global crisis of a pandemic. It's just unbelievable. I know when we were thinking that Governor Cooper was going to close school in March, on March the 13th last year, or 2 years ago, I remember thinking, there is no way this person is closing school. Well, then he did. And then I couldn't even believe we were going to be out for 2 weeks. And then I thought after 2 weeks, we'd just go back and everything would be just like always. Well, you know, still waiting on that, but okay. So it is a time, and I know some of you have mask mandates. Some of us have mask mandates. Some of you do not have mask mandates. It seems like this most recent version of Corona is just so highly contagious, and but at least for the most part, it's not as deadly, or drastic. So that part is good, but do take good care of yourself. The better your immune system and everything's built up, the better you are able to stay healthy for yourself. And then you're also able to have the stamina to do everything that you have put on yourself right now, because you have your families, you have your jobs, you have the other extracurricular activities you've always had. And then now you have 601 MELS. And so it's a lot. So sleep, try to have a sleep pattern, like bedtime, wake up time. Apparently that helps, what they say. Eat healthy meals, exercise, take care of your mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. And please remember to stay connected in meaningful relationships to those that you love. So tonight's introduction and brag will be team 2, and we have Philip, Arias, Michael, and Regina. So who wants to go first? Unmute and go. Introduce yourself and give us a little something to brag on yourself for.
I guess I'll go first. I'm Michael Terry. Nice to meet everyone. My biggest brag probably would be that I'm a first generation college student. So navigating that and, you know, having a master's degree, I just very proud of myself. So that's my brag.
As you should be proud of yourself. Congratulations. And you already have a master's and now you're doing this. So there you go. Very good. And fine work that you're doing. So good for you, Michael. We're all proud of you.
I'll go next. I am Regina Rhodes Steele. seventh grade social studies teacher. I really don't have a lot to brag about, but I will say that I recently was, I can't even think. I'm sorry, I just drew a blank because my day's been kind of crazy. But I was recently observed by my principal, and I had a good report. So that's always positive for me to hear.
Well, no doubt. I am sure it was a good report, and it is a little unnerving, isn't it? I will say, Regina, that when we talk about giving your peers timely feedback, like on your peer reviews in this class, it's the same thing when you're a principal or an assistant principal and you go and observe a teacher. I know that in North Carolina, you officially have 10 days to give the feedback, but really and truly, those teachers want that as soon as they can get it because they're sort of on eggshells the whole time. You know how that feels. So good for you. You got that one over, and that's good. And I know it was wonderful. Thank you. Who else wants to go from that team?
I can go. My name is Arius Murray Rowe, and I guess a brag for me would be as much as I was not looking forward to the data portion of these assignments, it's been very helpful. I've been able to apply it to some of the special populations that I work with in the school, and we are able to start working on some targeted support for those students.
Well, that is awesome, Arias. Thank you for letting us know that. That is good. That feels good. That makes this feel like what you're doing really is helping and really is, and that's what we want, for it to really be meaningful and really make a difference. That's good to hear. Thanks for sharing that. All right.
All right. I was just, I thought I was talking and my mic wasn't on. Hey, everyone. I'm Philip Russ. I'm an athletic director and a physical education teacher at East Rutherford High School in Forest City, North Carolina. My biggest brag is this course and this journey that we're taking together has definitely made my job, my real job, simplistic in a way. I used to get stressed out and frustrated with sports cancellations due to COVID, due to weather and things like that. But now that I'm taking a deeper insight into administrative duties, data, and seeing what the other two offices down the hall from me are dealing with every single day, and now that I'm involved in the internship piece and getting to be a part of teacher write-ups and discipline reports for students and ACT prep and map testing and all this stuff, I can just tell you that it is a joy when I get to step out of that domain for a moment to deal with swim meet makeups and basketball rescheduling, because it's like, oh, I get to go back and take a deep breath. So my brag is I have a real sincere appreciation for what all my previous administrators have done, because I had no idea how in depth and how many layers of the onion there really were in the administrative side of running the school.
Well, that is awesome, Philip, and I'm sure they'd love to hear that. And that's good. And I'm also really, really glad that they're permitting you the opportunity to have all those experiences. That's something else to be thankful for, because not everyone's in that same boat where they get to have all those valued experiences. So that's good. Good for you. I'm glad. That's awesome. Thank you all so much for sharing. We always love learning a little more about you. And if you cannot see my PowerPoint, please let me know. Of course, we do meet every Tuesday evening, and this is the link for our Tuesday evening classes. We'll be on spring break the week of March 14th. We will have a coaching session again this Thursday, February 3rd. And then we won't have another Thursday night until March 3rd and March 10th. If you need us on a Thursday night for anything in between, please let us know and we'll make arrangements, or any other time. Make sure that you're checking your Gardner Web email and announcements. We are posting things on there, and we're posting things in your Blackboard. You should have gotten your TaskStream account. If you have not, then please reach out to Wendy Turbyfield. Everything from this week will be uploaded in week 4. This is week 4 already out of about a 16-week class, so you're pretty much 25% of the way through. And if you're still struggling with APA 7th, please take time to go back and study and review and refer to the APA materials that are provided for you in Blackboard. And also, you can also refer to your APA manual. You should have a minimum of 501 points at this time. Many of you, most of you gave that timely feedback today, and I haven't gotten all those scored because they came in just in the last couple of hours. But most of you have submitted that now. And so for those of you who have already submitted your task 2 peer review feedbacks, you would have 701 points at this time. So good job. Thank you for that. I've also noticed that several of you in your peer review feedback, you're giving feedback on each individual heading in each task. And that really does add that specificity and that detail to the feedback and makes it even more valuable. So thank you so much for a job well done. Some have really been exemplary. When you submit your work, please make sure that you proofread your work. Anytime you see a red or blue squiggly line in Word, that is a warning that something may not be okay. So right click it or hover over it and see what Word is suggesting. Refer to your APA 7th edition manual to ensure your work is correct. There's also that PowerPoint that I shared earlier, week 1 or week 2. Once comments have been provided, it is expected that you apply the comments across your paper. So if just one time I were to say there's only one space after a period, then I would expect for you to correct that throughout your whole paper. I wouldn't go in and put that every single time that applied. Peer reviews, peer review tips. There need to be authentic, specific, and timely, and for the most part, that's happening well. In-text citations and references, remember that if you have an in-text citation, you must have that in the reference section, and if it's in the reference section, you must have it cited in the narrative in your paper. Sometimes I see something in the print, the type font looks just a little off, and it makes me feel like something was copied directly from an online source and placed into the paper. Remember that at the end, we do run all this work through, Turnitin check, and that is a plagiarism checker. So if you do have anything that is a direct quote, it must be in quotation marks with the appropriate in-text citation, also including the page number. I would suggest to you that if at all possible, paraphrase. Do not use direct quotes. Direct quotes make papers hard to read, and an overage of direct quotes doesn't really bring a complete thought out. So the fewer, you can use direct quotes, but the fewer the better. We avoid the use of contractions in formal writing. So instead of can't, you would say cannot. And when you list statistical numbers, list them in descending order. So if you were listing the ethnic makeup of the students in your school, then the largest population would be the first one that you list, the next largest would be second, etc. So task 2, you turned in your task 2 draft on Sunday evening or before. I think I had the first one turned in like last Thursday, so that was good. And it is all about data collection. Research all the available data that you could have, and the more data, the more accurate, reliable, and meaningful your work will be. I will promise y'all, I shouldn't say this part. This is back to the confidential part. The absolute worst EVOS training I've ever been in my life yesterday. That was with DPI, but it was 3.5 hours. That could have been part of the problem. They gave this example. I don't really know that I love the example, but the example was that the class went on the field trip, and Jamal threw a piece of paper out the bus window. So the teacher calls Jamal's mama and says, Jamal threw a piece of paper out the bus window. So what does Jamal's mama say? He said he didn't throw the paper out the bus window. Who saw it? So if only Philip saw it, then that may not be as reliable as all 60 children and all the adults on the bus saw it. That makes it more reliable. So when you have more people, more data points, more data sets, the more reliable and valid your information is. because that's just a good example. That was the one of the good things I took away from yesterday, was that good example about validity and reliability, and the more data, the more accurate, reliable, and meaningful your work is. You could collect data if some of you are struggling on like the completion of homework, students who are completing homework versus those who aren't. If you are really, really struggling, core words assessments or any kind of data that are classroom assessment data, you could add if you need to. The ones I've read so far have been perfectly thorough and fine. EOGs, EOCs. Now remember, these are acronyms. So the first time you use this, you would say end of grade testing, parentheses EOG, end of course testing, parentheses EOC. Then after that, you could just use the acronym. Formative assessment data, Amplify, iReady, iStation, in SchoolNet, NC check-ins, Amplify, I already had Amplify. Attendance data, if you so want to. Teacher working conditions survey, many of you have used that. Data from your InduStar school improvement. EVOS data, teacher effectiveness data, many of you have used that very effectively. That has been really, really good. I've seen you all do that, and some of you have really exemplified a thorough understanding of that. So that's really good. And then at the end of task 2, the most pressing need you and your team determine has to be something that's measured with a test score. The goal is to improve student learning. So it has to be something that can be improved with a test score. So for instance, if we go to our APSL helpful hints, and I am going to reshare my screen. If we go to our APSL helpful hints and we look at the example in task 2, oh wait, that's data collection strategies. Let me get down to the most pressing need. Most pressing need, here we go. Let's see. The math data prior to this is still supports an immediate and dire need for improvement. The 8th grade team can support this process through their daily intervention as well as through intentional teaching. Now, this is probably not a good example. Sorry, I just realized this is not a good example. So we don't want to talk about how we're going to support this at this time, because that is for task 4, is how you're going to support that. So that's not a good example. I need to just go in and take that out. But a good example would be like, for instance, the drop in proficiency. It was the lowest proficiency. It was the lowest in EVOS. And so this is our most pressing need because we want to improve the proficiency, the EVOS growth, or whatever it is in that area where our lowest scores were. So that is what you will want to put there, not what you're going to do about it yet, just what the problem is. And that problem needs to be aligned with something that we can measure with data, like math scores. I had somebody one time who literally had like 2 math objectives in 5th grade that they worked on. It was drilled down that narrow and that specific. So that was really, really good. And then you can always refer back to last week's PowerPoint on slide 26 that has more information about that as well. So task 2 prompt 1 is your narrative, and task 2 prompt 2 is visual representations with some narrative, of course. And then all of you fulfilled both prompts before submission, so that was excellent. Now, please remember, in your figures and everything that you put in your paper is going to be labeled as a figure. It may be a chart that you have created and put in there. It may be a snip from EVOS, just like this is. But figure, whatever it is, because they go in sequential order in your paper, will be bold. And then your title will be brief and it will not be bold and it will be in italics. And then left justified beneath the figure, you're going to have in italics, note with a capital N and a period afterwards. Then take away the italics and you are going to have a brief description. Now I see that this brief description is single spaced. That's for space purposes on here, but in your paper, it will be double spaced. So remember that. So this week, what is due for week 4? Well, most of you've already gotten your feedback from your peers for task 2, and most of you have already gotten your feedback from me for task 2. And then you're going to also, so you're going to finalize task 2, and you're going to turn that in to, oh, there's still that big, there it goes. You're going to turn in your finalized task 2 to your APSL assignment Dropbox. This was task 1 for evaluation from last Sunday night and task 2 for evaluation, which is what you will, where you'll put your final task 2 this Sunday evening. Then your APSL task 3 will be submitted to the discussion board by this Sunday evening. And then your APSL, you'll do your 2 peer reviews on task 3, and those will go to the assignment Dropbox as well. And your peer reviews will be due by, oh, that was tonight, sorry, you already did those. Due tonight, most of you have already done those, very good. And of course, your task 2 revisions will be due Sunday night, and your task 3 draft will be due Sunday night. We do have a Zoom session this Thursday evening. So you submitted task 2. You've gotten feedback for the most part from your instructor, feedback from your peers for the most part, and then all your revisions for task 2 go into that APSL assignment Dropbox by Sunday, February 6th, no later than 9 o'clock. And that just again is a recap of what is due, when, and where. So once your task 1 and 2 are complete, because this Sunday night, task 2 is done and you're on to task 3, right? You are to schedule a meeting with your principal leadership team and present the findings. So you need to schedule a meeting and say, hey, these are the data my PLC reviewed, and these are our findings. This is our most pressing need we have determined in our school that we want to work on. Now, you're not required to do a video, but it's highly recommended. And of course, that would be a part of your appendices. However, you should have a picture of yourself at a minimum presenting to your principal or your school leadership team, the school improvement team, or whatever. Have a picture of yourself doing that, and that'll also go in an appendix. Have a PowerPoint and an agenda for this presentation. This will be included in the work you submit for grading. So this information gets included at the end of task 2, prompt 2. So that needs to go in there, task 2, prompt 2, where you presented that most pressing need. That is in the directions. So if that is not in there, the state evaluator at the end will count off on that. And so we want to make sure that that does not happen. So that's sort of why this is big and bold here, to make sure that you do not overlook that presentation part at the end of task 2, prompt 2 in that final paragraph. And then when you work in APSL task 3, of course, the draft is due this coming Sunday evening, February 6th. You will go into, of course, APSL task review and select APSL task 3 for peer and instructor review. That's just, again, what's due this Sunday night. We've already talked about it. So before I go any further, any questions about task 2 and what is due?
I had a question. My principal attended that PLC meeting where we discussed the data and we got to the most pressing need. I didn't take a picture though. So do I need to try to go back and schedule another meeting with her to go over this, or?
No, don't schedule another meeting. Just no, just write it in there. And then the next time you meet with them, just take a picture and put it in there with it in the thing. Just don't redo it, but just next time. And then you can just write in there that your principal was there and that, and along with your PLC, your principal was there and and the most pressing need and the data were presented to your principal along with your PLC. And then you're all set. Okay, Arias? You good?
Yes.
Okay, good. Philip?
So just so I can, just to clarify that, that is added at the bottom of the most pressing need paragraph. We would just have the snapshot of the PowerPoint, the snapshot of the group meeting, and just add that in at the bottom of that section.
At the end of task 2, prompt 2. So that'll be beneath your figures
Okay. Okay.
as a summary paragraph to just create a complete summary for task 2.
Okay.
Thanks for the questions. That helps clarify, helps everybody else check for understanding, and gives everybody a minute to process. Okay, task 3 is a really fun task. So task 3, you have to know your most pressing need before you can move into task 3. And in task 3, you have 2 prompts just like you had in task 2. So in task 3, prompt 1, you're going to research best practices that features descriptions of best practices to address your most pressing needs. So you're going to do a literature review and an annotated bibliography. Those are 2 different things. Then you're going to present your findings of your research to your PLC in a collaborative process that aligns with the best practices and the results of the academic needs assessment from task 2, your most pressing need. For the purpose of this assignment, the best practice suggestions must utilize a form of technology not already being used on this targeted population of students. So we'll look at that just a little closer in just a minute. So in task 3, under APSL template and materials, you're going to see some things in there that can help you with this. Marzano's 9 high-yield strategies and a research-based instruction list. So when you go to APSL template and materials, there's a sample. There's a lot of things in here. Here is a research-based program list that one of us or several of us created this several years ago, I believe. But just here's some ideas of some research-based programs at all 3 levels. And this list was made a couple of years ago, so I'm sure there are more things now that could be added. That if you want to use any of this for a part of your research, that is there for you that you could look at. And again, that is in the APSL template and materials tab in Blackboard. Let's see if there's anything else in here. There is, we're going to look at this in just a minute, the annotated bibliography and the literature review. We need to know the difference between those 2 things. I thought the Marzano thing was in here, but I don't see it now, but it's just Marzano's high yield strategies, instructional strategies, the biggest yield strategy being comparing and contrasting. So that's something else that you just might want to keep in mind that's there. But in task 3, now these are just the instructions cut straight from your template. You're going to research best practices. You're going to do a literature review and an annotated bibliography that features descriptions of several best practices and why they were considered. You're going to present that to your PLC. And then the best practice has to use a form of technology. I just showed you some ideas, but you don't have to use those. The PLC will develop, now the PLC will develop graphic organizers and visuals that demonstrate the relationship between the need and the best practice in preparation for task 4, which is the action plan. There are no restrictions or directives that determine how, when, or where these will be used. Effective and strategic use of essential information that supports the decision-making process is critical. The PLC should actually discuss informed projections based on similar situations identified in the research, referencing them appropriately. APA format is required and descriptions of critical thinking and problem solving are encouraged. Now that's a lot, so we're going to break it down. So task 3, prompt 1. You have to know your most pressing need. So I'm going to pretend like my most pressing need is reading fluency, oral reading fluency in 2nd grade. That is my most pressing need. I'm going to do an annotated bibliography, and I'm going to do a review of the literature. So let's differentiate between an annotated bibliography and a review of the literature. When you did in task 1, prompt 1, you did PLC research. You had to have at least 3 researchers cited in your PLC research. That was a literature review. You took at least 3 pieces of research, you read them, you synthesized them, you took that information, you meshed it together, you put it together, and then you cited the different people, the different researchers, you cited them as you said what they said. That is a literature review where you take several different pieces of literature and you synthesize those, you bring those together. In an annotated bibliography, you only take 1 piece of literature. Now, this is not indented over far enough. It needs a hanging indent. You left justify with your citation. Now, the citation is also going to go in your reference section. So you left justify the top line, you start your citation, and then you do the hanging indent on the next line down. And then the rest of it is just you giving a brief synopsis of what this one research article was about. And that's it. You're going to read one article and you're going to summarize it in your own words beneath there. Notice there are no indentions. There's a hanging indent. The top line is left justified. There's a hanging indent on the rest. Now this is going to be a 1/2 inch hanging indent, and that is not the way that this example shows it. And again, if you cannot see my screen, please let me know. Under Axel template and materials, this is just another example of comparing the annotated bibliography with a literature review. In an annotated bibliography and a literature review, in an annotated bibliography, you have an ordered list of sources. So you're reading one and summarizing, reading one, summarizing, reading one, summarizing. In a lit review, you're providing an overview of a topic by summarizing and explaining multiple sources. In an annotated bibliography, the sources are separated from each other and they are arranged alphabetically. So make sure that you have them arranged alphabetically by the first author's last name. But in a lit review, those sources are integrated into the paragraphs based on the progression of the topic and how you are describing the topic. And then in an annotated bibliography, each item in the list uses that formal citation. So your actual citation is in there, just like I just showed you. And then it has a short paragraph with a summary explaining its credibility and relevance to the topic. But then in a lit review, you use an introduction to explain the topic, then you synthesize the sources throughout the body, and you conclude with a summarizing an overall paragraph. I think this has a little visual down here. It does. But it just sort of shows you that if you had sources A, B, C, D, and E in an annotated bibliography, you are going to cite that source, and then you're going to have a little paragraph that still has the hanging indent that tells about that source. And then, and this is going to be the first one alphabetically, and then source B, you're going to have your citation with a little summary of that one, C, D, and E. But in a literature review on the right, you're going to take sources A, B, C, D, and E, and you're going to have a topic. They're all on the same topic. In my case, oral reading fluency. You're going to have an introduction, and then you're going to have a little topic sentence in paragraph 1, and you might bring in a little something from source C and from source A. You're going to synthesize that information, and then paragraph 2 might be another little topic, and you might bring in a little information from source E and source B. And so those are the differences between an annotated bibliography and a literature review. And this is what you're going to be doing in task 3, is an annotated bibliography and a literature review. Now, how many sources do you have to have? Well, in your annotated bibliography, you have to have at least 8 resources, 5 regular resources, and 3 online tools you are not currently using. Those 8 resources are research solutions and remedies to the problem, your most pressing need, that you identified in task 2. So if my issue is oral reading fluency, then I am going to research articles and online tools that help build oral reading fluency, help solve that problem. So maybe I will read, maybe I'll go to Bulldog 1 and I'll search that, and I will read about the effects of repeated readings on oral reading fluency. So I may choose to do an annotated bibliography about repeated readings. So I'd have to get 5 different sources of things that address deficits in oral reading fluency of regular research for my annotated bibliography. And then I have to find 3 more online tools that we're not currently using that I could research to say, what can help, like what online tool helps with oral reading fluency? Well, maybe Raz Kids. I don't know, I'm just making this up. But anyway, that would be, you know, something that I might look at. And I would do the very same thing, go to the Raz Kids, or see if you can find a research article about Raz Kids and do your annotated bibliography with that. Then I'm going to do a literature review, or you can do your literature review first, where I'm just going to look up research about oral reading fluency, and I'm going to use at least 3 sources, and I'm going to read those 3 sources, and then I'm going to synthesize those together based on the topic of oral reading fluency and best practices that address deficits in oral reading fluency. Now, those online resources have to be technology research-based programs like Study Island, iReady, Raspberry Books. There's all kinds of things out there, as you know. They need to reflect your identified need. They can assist as a strategy for helping alleviate your need. You need to complete, of course, this according to APA. And then we've already looked at some of the materials in our Blackboard shelf that assist us with these problems. So make sure to read your description and instructions carefully in your template. You want to make sure that you're addressing everything that the template says to do. So once you've completed your task 1 and 2, and it has been presented to your principal, then you move forward to task 3, where you're going to research solutions to your most pressing need. Your focus, of course, in prompt 1 is your most pressing need from prompt 2. And you have to have 5 regular resources in your annotated bibliography. 3 have to be, you have to have 8 total, 5 regular sources and 3 online sources. And then in your literature review, you must have at least 3 sources in your literature review as well. This is just from the helpful hints document. I had just stuck that in there. Are there any questions about prompt 1? We can go back to prompt 1 in our helpful hints document. If we want to look at that again, that's the data presentation from task 2, prompt 2. And then we'll get on down to task 3. So you see here is task 3, prompt 1. And the most pressing need was to focus on subgroups in 8th grade mathematics and work on identifying a root cause and working on that. So here's a literature review about increasing 8th grade mathematics scores, where there were at least 3 authors quoted in there or referenced in that literature review. Then you'll notice the annotated bibliography. So here's the first article. Please notice the left justification of the top line of the reference citation, and then there is just all double spaced, and there are no indentions or any other indentions. Everything is indented a 1/2 inch, and then that is just a summary of that article. Then there's article number 2 with a summary beneath there of that article. There's article 3 with a summary beneath there of that one. Article 4, summary beneath. Article 5, oh, notice Article 5. Oh, that is your textbook right there. This person used the textbook reading to be able to pull out some research there. So remember that you do have that resource as well. So that's number 5. And then you can add this one little heading right here if you want to about the online digital tools, just to make sure that that is clearly stated that these are your online digital tools. So this person did Amplify Education as one, Ascend Math as one, and Trans Math as one, Math Intervention Program, Trans Math. So that was that. So that is task 3, prompt 1, and that is what your draft is due on Sunday night. Well, prompt 1 and prompt 2, we're getting ready to talk about prompt 2. Any questions about prompt 1? I'll give you a minute to process that. Oh, you're gonna have a blast with this one. This is a great one. And then let's move on to task 2, prompt 2. I'm at task 3, prompt 2. So you and your PLC are going to create these graphics and visuals and timelines and charts. You're going to look at these things. You're going to present all this research to your PLC, and then your PLC is going to help you choose the best strategy that suggests the use of technology not already being used that is applicable to your need. So prompt 1 is your writing, and again, prompt 2, you're going to have those visuals. So here is prompt 2. If you cannot see the helpful hint, please just unmute and let me know. Task 3, prompt 2. So just a little bit of narrative right there. Now see that red squiggly line? Now see, nobody caught that. There we go. Let's just fix that because that'll. So just, our PLC, just a little introductory right here. Then she explained the research, blah, blah. And then we discussed the importance of comparing the resources in order to make the best informed decision about what to get to support our most pressing need. And so then we have a figure with the mathematical thought and action. We have figure 9. Notice that the notes are missing from here, so let's not miss that. 9, 10, and then this is my favorite one, and this is very, very important for you to do. This is figure 11, the comparison of resources. So they looked at Amplify, Ascend Math, and Trans Math. They looked at the cost, they looked at the positives of each and the negatives of each. So you need to make sure that you add this comparison chart. And then that should say note right there, and it doesn't say that. And I apologize for that, but just for your happiness right now, that will not be in your Blackboard, but we'll do that right now for you just for a good example. So then after that, this says chart 11 shows how we compared. They looked at the timeline, move forward with presenting the results to the principal, because you have to then go to the principal and say, oh, this is what we think that we would like to use and get permission to use it, whether it's free or whether it costs money or whatever it is. And that's a consideration too. If there's no money, and sometimes there's less money in the spring than there is in the fall, then that's something to think about. So then it goes on down and says that therefore the PLC members and I came to the consensus that based on research and online resources available, the focus on basic math foundational skills and mathematical literacy tied in the most pressing need. The best resources would be Trans Math by Voyager. And then I'm going to get a quote from them. And so anyway, you don't have to say you're going to get a quote. It could be free. But so that is task 3. That's it. So very similar to how you did task 2, and that you did something, then you did the visual representations afterwards. Very similar to how you did task 1 with the lit review. But this time you get to do the lit review and the annotated bibliography. Quite honestly, annotated bibliographies are easier than lit reviews because you're not having to synthesize, you're just summarizing each individual one. Now, you may ask, can the articles or the research in our lit review be the same as some of the research articles in our annotated bibliography? And we would ask no, that you not do that. Any questions about task 3? Okay, you should have gotten your TaskStream accounts. You should have claimed those accounts. Do you have any questions about your competency folio? When you go to the competency folio in Blackboard, wherever Blackboard has gone on my screen here, seems to be completely gone. When you go to your Blackboard, go over to the video library in Blackboard. If you cannot see my screen, please holler at me now. And right here, you'll see setting up your competency folio in TaskStream. There's a YouTube video right there that Dr. Lamb did. And beneath there, you will see an example of a competency folio right there. And that's a wonderful example. And then right here, you see creating your competency folio. That is just something that I took. I watched Dr. Lamb's video from above, and I re-linked the video right there. It's only 4 minutes. And I tried to go through and sort of transcribe step by step. So get 2 computers and watch the video and watch the transcription. And you can do it step by step as you go through that. I think if you'll look at those resources under that video library in TaskStream, that you'll be able to set up your competency folio in TaskStream without any issue. I think so. So again, let's do this week. You're going to finish up task 2, draft task 3, and your peer reviews were due today. And I think most of those are in. Any questions about any of that? Remember about APA? There are some little clues for you right there. And then week 5, because we're barreling on, task 3 will be done. You'll be doing a Zoom task 1 and 2 conference with your Zoom team. That'll be on a video that you'll submit, and task 4 draft will be due. Dr. Crawford, what do you have to add for us this evening?
The competency folio used to be set up to where once you put items in it and requested comments, it would automatically generate an email to me. When you get to that point, you may be a couple of weeks off, but when you get to that point and you start doing that, shoot me an email to my Garden Web account so that I know to go in and look at anything that you submitted. But again, we probably get another couple of weeks before we get to that point, but just know that when you do, shoot me an email because it may not generate, and I won't know to go in and look and check off on that particular artifact.
And Dr. Crawford, they have to request comments from you.
Yes.
Or you will not know for sure.
Correct.
And that email is a good backup. because you don't want to turn something into Dr. Crawford and think, well, why in the world has he not replied to me when he doesn't even know it's there? But just request it for the ones that you have done. Do not request comments from all, because what's going to happen is, let's go back to NARA's right here. So you have communication, change management, conflict, you have all the 21 competencies. Now, as you scroll on down, you're going to see digital learning competencies. This is just telling you what are digital learning competencies. This is what this is. This is just an explanation of those. You don't put anything in that one. That's just there for you as a reference. At the end of this semester, you'll put your internship log here, and you'll need to label it internship log, MELS, whatever, because you're going to use this same competency folio for a whole year. So everything has to be labeled. So if you go to communication, you're going to leave these directions right here. And you're gonna either put in an evidence from your APSL, your PSYOP, or your open-ended. Well, you did your APSL this semester. You haven't done your PSYOP yet. So you can't put in an evidence right now from PSYOP. You would either have to put in APSL or open-ended. And if you choose open-ended, then at some other point, you're going to have to go back and put in your APSL. So you may as well go ahead and do your APSL. And then you want to label it. Notice that Anira right here, she put fall 2017. You're going to put spring 2022. And then you want to put APSL. And you want to write a brief description right there about what you've submitted as your evidence. And every evidence in here has to have an artifact. And that's going to be uploaded in a Word document or a PDF. And you want to also label that APSL, whatever it is. You can say communication because this one's communication. APSL spring 2022. That label needs to correspond with your brief description up here, because in the summer and next fall, if you can't go and make that correspondence, then you're not going to know which attachment goes with which brief narrative. And right now, when you're only putting in one, it's not a problem. But a year from now, or in December, it's going to be a problem for you. So make sure that it is labeled. And if you happen to upload something, let's just say, in one of these, it says must satisfy the digital learning competency. So notice that she's got 2 in here that satisfies her digital learning competency. And when she put open-ended and then she wrote digital learning, she highlighted that in yellow. That way it let all of us know, hey, this is her digital learning one. So for instance, you could go in here with your email correspondence with your administrator asking for permission for the PLC. And you could go in here and you could talk about how you emailed your principal asking for permission to form the PLC as a part of the APSL, and that you effectively communicated with your principal via email through correct grammar and whatever else you want to say, just very briefly. And then your artifact, the attachment, could be a screenshot of that email that's already an appendix in your APSL. You could put up there APSL digital learning, highlight that, and that could already satisfy that for you. So, so that's that. Now, also when you go into not your competency folio, but when you go into task stream, into the regular DRF, you'll see when you go in there that there's School of Ed dispositions that you need to complete. So go into the School of Ed dispositions. I don't know if I'll be able to get in here or not. Let me see if this is the right one. Go into your School of Ed dispositions and get those completed as well. So when you do your competency folio, you'll go up to this purple bar, folios and web pages. That's where you're going to create your competency folio. But when you go into task stream, I don't know if I'm going to have spring of 22. And let's see if I can see. Oh yeah, this is y'all. So you're going to go in here. This is your regular DRF. Now, this is not your competency folio. You're going to go over here to the School of Ed dispositions. And it's a checklist. And Dr. Lamb will tell you, it is a checklist. And if you go in there and you just say met, not met, whatever you want to put, that's fine. But if you put in there, I don't remember what the top one is, but let's say it succeeds, like you already have this, you're good. Then there's a little box in there that you will have to write a description with some evidence of why you think you already exceed in this area. But if you just go in there and mark met, then that can be done and checked off, and then that will get evaluated and sent back to you. So you do need to go ahead and do your School of Ed dispositions right now as well. That's one more thing. And that's the only thing you're going to do in the DRF right now. And then you'll do your folios and web pages. You'll click on that in the purple bar up at the top to create your folios and web pages. And again, you can go to the video resources in Blackboard to see how to do that. Ooh, that was a lot for tonight. They're close. They're already close, Dr. Crawford, getting there.
Yeah.
Dr. Crawford, give us a benediction.
4 weeks down, 11 weeks to go.
Doing good work. Y'all have a great night. Thank you for choosing Garden Web, for allowing us to have this time with you. We appreciate you. Keep the work coming. You're doing great.